Good morning and welcome again. This morning, our webinar is about storage as a service, a new way of acquiring, deploying, and operating storage. This morning, Zadara and Mellanox are going to give you an overview of how storage as a service works, how it's available to you in the public cloud or on-premise in your private cloud, and how they're on the leading edge of making cloud storage faster with a new technology called ISER. Your presenters this morning are me, Frank Berry, founder and senior analyst at IT Brand Pulse, Noam Shendar, vice president of business development and Golden Gate Bridge Runner at Zadara Storage, and John Kim, director of storage marketing at Mellanox. This is our agenda today. What's not shown here is we'll wrap up the webinar with questions and answers. I'm guessing storage as a service and ISER are new technologies to a lot of you out there. And we have the experts from Zadara and Mellanox right here, so please don't be shy about asking questions. With that, let's get started with each market overview. Storage as a service is a byproduct of a new architecture called software-defined storage. IT Brand Pulse just completed the survey of 300 IT pros in January, and based on the voting, SDS will be evaluated and deployed most, making it our hottest new storage technology of 2015. This chart shows that the 25% of IT organizations who voted that they will be deploying or evaluating SDS in 2015 are at the front of an epic migration from traditional enterprise storage. Around 2021, 6 years from now, we expect revenue from enterprise software-defined storage, like Zadara, to surpass revenue from traditional enterprise storage. The reason why the migration to software-defined storage is certain to happen is because it's proven to be so successful in the hyperscale arena. I'll give you an example. At the AWS reInvent conference just last month, an AWS executive talked on stage about how they deploy every day the infrastructure needed to support Amazon's e-commerce business when it was at $7 billion of revenue per year. He emphasized they did that every day, 365 times last year. AWS achieves this level of automation and flexibility with open source software that puts the hyper into scale. You can do it with Zadara, which is fully tested and supported hyperscale technology for the masses. I'm guessing that most of your data centers look like this, and you're 1/3 the way to software-defined data center, by virtue of the fact that you've already deployed software-defined servers, otherwise known as server virtualization. What lies in the future is software-defined networking and software-defined storage. In the years ahead, as your public and private cloud data centers migrate to software-defined, IT organizations will deliver infrastructure as a service to their business, and your architecture will look like this. Storage networking infrastructure will be applications running on industry-standard servers. The only question in my mind is, at that point, will your software-defined storage be deployed as private or public storage as a service? At this point, I'd like to introduce Noam Shendar to help you answer that question.
Thank you so much, Frank. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Again, as Frank introduced me, I'm Noam Shendar. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Zadara Storage. And let me jump right in first to give you a little bit of an overview of Zadara Storage. What we do is interesting in itself, and then I'll continue by handing off to John, who'll tell us about ISER technology, and then I'll bring the two together and show the wonderful things that happen when the two are combined. So a little bit, again, about us at Zadara Storage. We started the company with the recognition that when customers look at traditional storage arrays, they really like what the arrays themselves do, but they don't like what they have to do for them. In other words, the products are very good, but the experience of procuring them and running them is not as good. And when customers look at storage as a service, they notice that those services are very, very convenient, but they're not necessarily as capable. In most cases, they're far less capable than the traditional storage array, which brings them to an unpleasant choice. They have to choose between powerful storage and flexible, easy-to-procure storage. So an observation that we made is that it probably shouldn't have to be that way, that probably the two should come together. So we pioneered a category, a new product category that we call enterprise storage as a service. It combines everything that is good and pure about enterprise storage through the traditional storage arrays from the major vendors and the best of cloud storage in a single product, being in fact making it the only storage product or service out there that simultaneously provides the same capabilities, features, performance, reliability, and most importantly, application compatibility with any existing application, and at the same time providing it purely as a service, which means it's flexible, it's elastic, it costs literally nothing up front. You pay only for what you use. It's fully managed. So just like cloud services are, the responsibility to keep the thing up and running and operating optimally is ours rather than yours as a customer, and it carries no long-term commitment. So imagine taking the best of the traditional storage products, which are fantastic products. There's a reason why the world is buying so many of them in any given year. We're talking $40 to $50 billion worth per year. And we also take the best of the cloud, the ease of use, the ability to instantly grow and shrink and to be incredibly efficient and agile, and we put the two together into a single service. We call that service the VPSA, the Virtual Private Storage Array. So it's enterprise storage as a service. It's a fully featured enterprise class storage product that is offered as a service as pure OpEx. It comes with 100% data availability SLA. So this is our guarantee to our customers that we will maintain the product for optimal, actually full uptime and optimal performance. And customers pay on the go based on actual consumption. So paying not for what they have, but for what they use. And to Frank's question at the end of his section, do you go private cloud or public cloud? The answer is yes. The same solution is available both in the cloud and on premises with exactly the same cloud economics, in fact, the same price. It's the same hardware, the same software, the same management APIs, and the exact same features and services, which means that actually that experience of having the storage that you need when you need it, and then if you need something else, having the something else is now available anywhere that you need it. And what does that mean, anywhere that you need it? It means that in public clouds, it's available at any of a number of major public clouds around the world, like Amazon Web Services, like Microsoft Azure, like Dimension Data, Cloud Sigma, FlexiScale, and Serenitas, covering 4 continents around the world. And when you consume the storage there, you order it through a convenient and easy-to-use web portal, and in real time, that storage becomes available to you already connected to your private cloud or your virtual private cloud within your chosen service provider and easily attachable to any of your virtual machines within those clouds. So think of it as a virtual SAN or virtual NAS, custom configured for you, by you, in a matter of minutes, and offering all of the reliability, performance, features, and compatibility of a traditional SAN and NAS. And charged by the hour, no upfront cost, and elastic up, down, left, right, which means more you can add or remove capacity, and you can also add and remove performance as needed in real time with hourly increments. And then I think the really amazing thing is not only can you get this experience in public clouds, which is what you'd probably expect, but you can also get the same experience on premises. So that means that everything I just described, storage that you custom configure in a matter of minutes, and then you can change at any time, and you pay by the hour, and you can grow and shrink as you need and as your requirements change, is also available on premises, which means that we deliver it to you as a hardware appliance, but you don't buy it. You only use it, and we bill you based on your actual usage. We call it Opus, on premises as a service. So these are the 2 flavors of VPSA. There's VPSA in the cloud and VPSA on premises. As the slide shows, you can easily move your data back and forth as needed for any reason, for disaster recovery, for cloud bursting, for global workflows, et cetera, or even just to change from one cloud provider to another. And you can do this among any of our 30-plus locations around the world, and again, also on your private premises. So if you have storage on your own private premises, you can replicate from there to any of the locations shown here on the map, and we keep adding new ones all the time. The point being that you have the entire world at your fingertips in terms of where you want either your primary data or your secondary data located. The way that VPSAs are created is there is the physical storage that's available. And again, you don't pay for the physical storage. You only pay for the actual VPSA, virtual private storage array that you use. So in this example, first customer comes in, creates a virtual private storage array out of 8 drives and pays only for that storage. So paying for 2 things, the drives and what we call the Zadara engine, which you can think of as the controller. Bigger engines provide more performance and cost more. And then the second customer comes along and creates their own, in this case, 16 drive array and with a larger engine and more performance. And one extra benefit that you get here, not only do you get to create an array, custom configured array on the fly and change it any time, but also each array is completely isolated from all other arrays. So in this example here, the 2 customers each have their own elastic array that they can grow and shrink, and they pay only for what they're using. But also, those 2 customers are completely isolated. They don't share drives, they don't share engines, which means they don't share memory, they don't share CPUs. All of these things are completely isolated, which is good for 2 things. It's good for quality of service, and it's good for data privacy, because these 2 customers cannot collide or interfere with each other in any way, as if they're operating in 2 separate physical boxes. It's the equivalent of that. And yet it's elastic, on demand, and billed hourly. That's the beauty of the service. And it's not just us saying how wonderful it is. We've been winning awards for almost ever since the inception of the company. 2 notable awards recently is that last year Gartner named us Cool Storage Vendor. And early this year, Frost & Sullivan named us the Innovation Leader for 2015. Both of those are in recognition of the breakthrough nature of this product, the product that provides all of the benefits of traditional storage, but without the encumbrances and with all the flexibility, agility, and cost-effectiveness of the cloud. And it's not just the analysts who are singing our praises, it's customers as well. This is just a smattering of our customers. We have a global set of customers in many industries. You can see some of them here. You can see some interesting logos like Harvard University and the Swiss federal government and Accenture and Deloitte and so on and so forth. All of these customers are enjoying the reliability, the flexibility, the ease of use, and really the cost savings that come both from a product that's incredibly efficient because they don't need to overpurchase, and the cost effectiveness that comes from our managing the product on their behalf. We ensure that it works optimally all the time, and all they have to do is consume the storage as needed, more and less as conditions change. With that, what I'd like to do is change tracks, hand it over to John, who'll tell you about ISER, and then we'll bring it all together. John, all yours.
Noam, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. This is John Kim. I'm now going to talk a little bit about ISER, also known as iSCSI extensions for RDMA. So as a brief summary first, ISER is an iSCSI with an RDMA transport. This means it can run over RoCE, which is RDMA over converged Ethernet. It can also run over InfiniBand. It can run at 10, 40, or 56 gigabits per second, depending on what kind of network you're using. And because it is iSCSI, it works with all standard applications. That is nearly every single application out there, anything which can use regular iSCSI, fiber channel, or FCOE, also runs with ISER without any changes to the application. So that certainly makes it very easy to implement ISER from an application standpoint. From a performance standpoint, it offers several benefits. Mostly, on the performance side, it offers the ability to have more bandwidth because, again, you can run at up to 40 or 56 gigabits a second. It has more IOPS and also lower latency. And this performance benefit is due to 2 reasons. First, the transport is very efficient because it uses RDMA, also known as Remote Direct Memory Access, and also it offloads the CPU. So the CPU is less involved both at the initiator and at the target, which you could also call the source and the destination. And that means you can get more data through more quickly with lower latency and, in fact, with less CPU utilization. So the CPU is freed up to run your application or your hypervisor or perform other important tasks rather than handling all the network I/O. Because it is based on iSCSI, you can use the standard iSCSI storage management and tools, which makes it very easy to integrate and manage. So because it's low latency and high throughput, ISER is really good for latency-sensitive workloads, anything which has a lot of small, random I/O. It actually also works well because of the higher bandwidth. When you run it over 40 gig Ethernet or 56 gig Ethernet or InfiniBand, it's actually also good for applications that have large sequential I/O and need a lot of bandwidth. But the place where it really shines, again, is in those applications that have lots of small, random input-output. These are typically databases, like an OLTP workload, or many virtualization workloads. Due to what's known as the I/O blender effect in virtualization, the I/O from many different virtualized workloads turns out looking like a very random small I/O workload to the storage. And ISER is really good at that. And so, for example, it's really good for virtual desktop infrastructure known as VDI. On this slide, we have a chart and a Venn diagram comparing some of the different block and file storage protocols. So if we look at the chart, we see that the first 4 protocols listed are common block storage protocols, and the last 2 are the common file storage or NAS protocols, known as SMB Direct, also known as CIFS for Windows, and NFS for Unix and Linux. If you look at block protocols, we see that, again, the first 4 are all block transport, but they run on slightly different transport layers. So ISER, again, runs on RoCE, which is RDMA over Converged Ethernet. It can run on InfiniBand. And then Fiber Channel, of course, only runs on a Fiber Channel network. FCOE runs on Ethernet, but it requires a lossless or DCBX Ethernet, which is actually very similar to the Ethernet that supports ISER. And then regular iSCSI runs on any kind of Ethernet because it uses the TCP transport. We also see that out of these protocols, the only 2 that support RDMA, which is, again, the Remote Direct Memory Access, are ISER and SMB Direct, which is, again, the Windows NAS protocol. And the same thing is shown in the Venn diagram. We see that if we look at the file protocols and the block protocols, and we isolate which ones are able to do RDMA, which again gives you that higher throughput and that lower latency, they're only SMB Direct, which is a version of SMB 3.0, and then ISER, which is again iSCSI extensions over RDMA. Just a minor note for those of you who are wondering on the Unix side, NFS does have an RDMA version available, but the standard is not finalized and the development is still a work in progress. So it's generally not used with RDMA. I'm going to now go on and talk a little bit about the requirements to deploy ISER. So it's actually fairly simple. First, on the application side, as I mentioned, you generally don't need to change anything. More than 99% of all applications out there can already use ISER. So it's very easy to support it from the application side with no changes. You do need an operating system or a hypervisor that can support an ISER initiator. Today, that's Linux or VMware, and also Oracle Solaris. However, in the near future, we expect that Windows Server and FreeBSD will also add ISER initiators, and those will also be able to host applications that can run over ISER and take advantage of this performance advantages. You also need a storage target that can support ISER. So obviously the best about this example here is Zadara Storage PVSA, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. You've heard some Zadara already from Noam. And then the final thing you need is a network that supports RDMA. And again, that can be a lossless Ethernet network, which is typically known as RoCE, or it can be an InfiniBand network, which is a sort of the traditional RDMA network that's been around for a long time. To have this kind of network, the adapters must specifically support either InfiniBand or RoCE, and the switches, however, if they're on the Ethernet side, it turns out that most enterprise switches can support this capability because you don't need a switch that has a special RoCE capability. You just need a switch that can do priority flow control or support DCBX. And just as a side note, we see here some Mellanox adapters and switches, which of course support these capabilities. But they're not the only ones. So the ability to support ISER over an Ethernet network is actually becoming fairly widespread. And so on this slide, we have a picture of an ISER ecosystem today. So again, we see that in the center, VMware, Linux, or VMware ESXi, Linux, and Oracle Solaris are the operating systems and hypervisors that allow you to support an ISER initiator. And I forgot to add here that KVM, running under Linux, also works as a hypervisor that can run ISER. And then out on the sides, we see that Windows Server and FreeBSD are also expected to add ISER support, probably in the towards the middle or end of this year. You need to run it over an RDMA-capable network, which again is just lossless Ethernet or InfiniBand. And then you need a storage target. So obviously the obvious candidate here for ISER storage would be Zadara, but then there are also some other storage vendors that are supporting it, and there are more adding ISER capability all the time. So for my last slide, I just want to talk briefly about ISER performance in general before Noam will talk a little bit more about ISER performance as it applies specifically to Zadara. So this is a test that we ran in the lab. We set up an actual virtual desktop infrastructure using VMware. and we ran virtual desktops. And we ran a common VDI benchmark called Login VSI, which is able to test how many virtual desktops can you support with a reasonable response time. And we had two setups. They used the same server, same storage, same amount of memory, and in fact, most of them, they've used the same speed of network, 10 gigabits a second, 10 gigabit Ethernet, but one used regular iSCSI over TCP, and the other used ISER over Rocky with a Mellanox 10 gigabit Ethernet adapters. And we see that we got 2.3 times more desktops just going from regular iSCSI to ISER. And this is at 10 gigabits a second. So the network speed didn't change, the type of storage, the type of servers, the CPU all didn't change. Just by going to this more efficient network transport, we're able to get 2.3 times more virtual desktops with the same response time. And then the bottom green bar on the chart shows what if you did the same test with 40 gig Ethernet. And in this case, it turns out we maxed out the CPU on the hypervisor hosts. So the performance got a little better, but not a lot better. And again, that should be seen as a limitation of the machines that we used for this test, not really a limitation of the network. But again, I think the key point is that even just staying with comparing 10 gigabit Ethernet to 10 gigabit Ethernet, again, same hardware, same storage, ISER was able to deliver more than 2 times more desktops with the same response time and same responsiveness compared to regular ISER. So that concludes my overview of ISER. I'd like to return it to Noam, who'll talk more specifically about ISER storage acceleration in the Zadara PVSA environment.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. Now, I've been observing the Q&A window and have been answering some of the questions as they come along, but one goes to you, John, and I'd like to pause quickly here to give you an opportunity. There's a question about the Windows support for ISER. Can you make any comments about the when and also the what? Will it be bootable? Will it support both Windows client and server? And will it be a Microsoft release or a Mellanox driver release?
Sure. Those are all great questions. So I expect it will be probably towards the end of 2015 that this capability will be out. It's likely that it will initially support Windows Server and then perhaps later move to support Windows Client. But I'm not sure about that. It's also possible that we are working with Microsoft on it. They may be able to support it both on Windows Server and Client at the same time. Will it be bootable? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to check into that. When you do RDMA connections to a client operating system, sometimes it's bootable, sometimes it's not. Thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you as well, John. A couple of other questions. I wanted to make 2 points because there were some very good questions about the Zadara storage service. So one was about whether the on-premises solution is available internationally. And the answer is absolutely yes. We ship anywhere in the world. We have distribution hubs in Asia, in Europe, and in the U.S. A related question was, about data sovereignty, especially within international borders, and that's really the point of the on-premises service. It's for companies that want the benefits of cloud, but either don't want to or not allowed to store their data in the cloud, which is why we bring the cloud to them. We ship the storage to the private premises of that company, wherever it is in the world. The company gets the convenience of cloud without moving the data outside the building. That's a very, very important point. A similar question was about the policies regarding where the data resides and how it's replicated. And again, the whole product is designed for full control and the ability to decide what happens to the data and when, and then to change any time if policies change. So it means where you procure the storage either in a specific cloud location or a specific private location, the data lives just there, and it's not replicated anywhere unless you want it replicated, in which case you specify where to replicate it to. So you specify down to the spindle, literally, down to the hard drive or SSD where the data lives, and then if you want replicas, you decide, again, down to the spindle or SSD where the data resides. So example, let's say that you're a company in Germany, you want your data inside the physical borders of Germany. You can have the on-premises solution inside your private building, and then you can also, if you'd like, replicate to our Frankfurt location that's in Equinix and attached to Amazon Frankfurt. So that way, all of your data still resides within a single country, but you have 2 replicas, and it was your decision where to replicate and how often to replicate. And then a last question that I saw was around the media. So I made references to spindles and SSDs, and so we support both, and you can choose any mix, and you can change it from pure hard drive to pure SSD or anywhere in between, and you can change it. This is a an elastic experience. If you want to shift to more heavy SSD or you want to shift to a more affordable per gigabyte magnetic media, you can do this. There are some questions coming in. I'll get to them in the end. Let me tell you about how the amazing ISER technology that John described applies to Zadara storage and why we're so excited about it. When we build our stack and ship it either to our private location, like I just described, or to a public location, like, for example, just now we just announced our Frankfurt location, so it meant that we had to ship equipment to the Equinix co-location facility and then attach it to the Amazon region that's in Frankfurt. We ship a stack of servers, and those servers run our software and have the drives directly attached to them, but we also ship a good amount of Mellanox content. So we use Mellanox's 40 gig switches. Depending on how big the stack is, we use either the 12-port or the 24-port version. And I'll note, of course, we double up on the switches for active-active protection, but also we really like the 12-port version because it's a single rack unit half-width form factor. So we can have a redundant configuration in a single rack unit. And anybody who's dealt with renting rack space in co-location facilities knows that it costs money. It's quite expensive, so saving on rack space is a big deal. And then inside the servers are the ConnectX-3, and actually we typically use the ConnectX-3 Pro adapters, and those are ISER-enabled 40 gigabit Ethernet adapters. There's one per server. We call the server storage nodes. And then in the on-premises environment, if the customer so chooses, they can install the same adapters in their application servers, which we call the endpoints. So that's the content that we ship. And it means that the network looks something like this. Our storage nodes are the icons in black on the right side. The application servers are on the left. And there's a standard Ethernet network, 10 or 40 gigabits, connecting the two to each other. And when ISER is enabled, we measure end-to-end acceleration of 10x. And this is out of the box. This is not requiring tweaking or optimization or anything like that. If ISER is working end-to-end, we see a 10 times improvement in the three key metrics. The latency is 10 times smaller, the IOPS are 10 times higher, and the throughput is as well 10 times higher. And I can further break that down into two pieces. One that we call the internal latency, and the other is the endpoint latency. So the three storage nodes that I showed in the previous slide, and we can have anywhere from 2 to hundreds of storage nodes, they communicate with each other using ISER. And just by turning on ISER among the storage nodes, we instantly improve performance by a factor of 3. And again, this is along all three vectors, latency, IOPS, and throughput. And this is because we replicate data across the storage nodes for redundancy and reliability. So if we reduce the latency among the nodes, then we also reduce the latency and response time of the system, and hence the 3 times performance improvement. And then if the endpoints, which are the application servers, are enabled with ISER, then we get another 3.3x performance boost in the application, again along these three vectors, latency, IOPS, and throughput. And when you combine the 3x improvement for the internal ISER and the 3.3x improvement for the endpoint ISER, the overall result is a 10x performance boost. And again, this is without having to do anything different to either the application software or our software. It's literally out of the box. And also, it's using a standard Ethernet infrastructure. So the cables are Ethernet cables. The switch is an Ethernet switch. It needs to be lossless capable, which is, of course, what Mellanox does. But to be fair and to show you how non-disruptive this is, if you already have another switch that is lossless capable, you can just use that switch. You don't have to rip anything out. And the NICs themselves also are in the same price range as other Ethernet NICs. So what we see is a 10x performance improvement basically for free. To us, there's no significant cost addition, and that's another reason why we love ISER so much. So why did we pick ISER as our standard protocol? Because of the performance improvement that we saw, both IOPS and throughput, and the fact that with ISER, we can go up to wire speed, be it 10 gig or 40 gig, we will fill up the pipe completely, which is another way of saying over a single ISER connection, we will easily deliver 4 gigabytes per second, which is what you get with the single 40 gig wire, and then we can scale up from there. So, of course, we go along multiple wires. And then I expounded on a cost basis. It's standard Ethernet infrastructure. You can use your existing switches. You don't need expensive HBAs or fabric switches or anything like that. So this is the beauty of ISER and why we're so excited about it. So let me kind of summarize here. The ISER technology is, for us and we think for the industry, a breakthrough technology. It provides the benefits of other much more expensive interconnects like InfiniBand and like Fiber Channel at a cost basis that's an Ethernet cost basis at speeds that are Ethernet speeds, which are much faster than Fiber Channel speeds, right? Today, Mellanox is supporting 40 and 56 gigs, and of course, that's going to 100 gigs in the future at a time when standard Fiber Channel is 16 gigs and going to 32. So you can see how that curve is a better curve to ride now and in the long term. And in the ISER technology, when combined with a flexible, on-demand enterprise storage service, means the best of all worlds. An affordable, flexible, agile, elastic storage service available where you need it, privately or publicly, or both at the same time in a hybrid cloud configuration, is a killer combination, best of all worlds. And if that sounds interesting, of course, we encourage you to try it out. So it's available, as you saw on the map, across 4 continents. It's available in Europe, in the US, in Asia, and in Oceania. And VPA with ISER is also available on demand in public clouds. Of course, if we deliver it to you on premises, ISER is standard, but we've also installed it at our Northern Virginia location on the east coast of the US and at our Frankfurt location in Germany. And if you would like to try it, of course, we provide free trials, and there's no obligation that comes along with those trials. You can create a free account. You can see the pricing just by registering. There's no cost to register, no credit card number that you need to enter. It's just provide your real email address and verify it, and then you can see the prices directly there. Or you can email us at sales@zadarastorage.com, and depending on where in the world you are, the right person will contact you and find out what your needs are and go from there. What I will do, I'll leave this slide on while I start looking at some questions that have been coming in, and if they pertain to Zadara, I will answer them, and if not, I will pass them along to the right panelist. So first question I see here is support available locally to private location? And absolutely yes. So we will deliver the storage to anywhere, and we remotely manage it on your behalf, and we provide 24/7 support included in the ongoing cost of the storage. So your experience is you receive a stack from us at a location that you specify. All you need to do is connect the private network to your internal network, to your LAN, and then there's an external port that is our management port that you connect outside your firewall because you don't want to let us inside your firewall. We deliver our own firewall with the stack, so you connect that firewall outside of your firewall, basically to your DMZ, and then as soon as we see the storage remotely, we enable it, and you can start using it. We meter it, and we bill you monthly for it, and that monthly bill that is based on your actual usage includes the full support, the full 24/7 support, and our remote management. That's very, very easy for you. Zero upfront cost, pay for what you use, up or down, completely elastic. Another question I see is the cost per use of the model. It's an hourly cost. It's the same actually as in the cloud. We provide cloud pricing on premises, another very, very attractive feature of the service. And again, if you register on our website at zadarastorage.com, you have access to the pricing just by logging in with the credentials that you create. Next question I see is what server vendors are supported, which are our preferred choice in our public DCs, so data centers. So first of all, we deliver the full stack. We don't deliver it as software because from a user experience standpoint, we look to make it as easy as possible. So we don't want you to have to go through a software installation and to have to procure specific hardware and so on and so forth. So we deliver the complete appliance to you, and it's, of course, a very scalable appliance. If you need more capacity, we just deliver it to you at no cost because you only pay for what you use. You don't pay for what you have. We use a number of server vendors, and we're certified with a number of server vendors, including from across the spectrum, from Supermicro to Dell to Cisco, IBM, HP, Quanta, and so on and so forth. And again, the choice of servers is really our implementation choice, not something that you need to worry about. You get the complete hardware and software already pre-integrated. So many server types, and we choose the best for reliability, the best for performance, and the best for price. Another question I see, and looks like they're all going to me, so sorry, fellow panelists, for excluding you, is the data backed up regularly? And one of the concerns is SSD reliability. So a few things you should know. First, in terms of SSD reliability, we use very high endurance SSDs, and we typically use Toshiba. It's a publicly known fact that Toshiba is one of our major investors, and we're not required to use their SSDs, but we tested them and find them to be the best combination of endurance, performance, and price. So part one of the answer is extremely durable SSDs. These are SSDs that are designed to be continuously written for 5 years in a row and survive for that period of time. Number two, RAID protection is required even with SSDs. So we do not allow any single SSD to be unprotected. So when you pick SSDs, you need to pick a RAID protection level also. We support RAID levels 1, 5, and 6. Your choice how you want to do it. RAID 1 gives you best performance, but it has a 50% overhead in terms of parity. The RAID 5 gives you the best utilization, but slightly less performance than RAID 1. And then RAID 6 is kind of a combination. It gives you a lot of redundancy, but it also comes at a larger overhead than RAID 5, less overhead than RAID 1. The third part of the answer is you decide how to back up your data. So you can run a traditional backup package. That's your choice. And of course, we're compatible with any of the backup services and packages and suites out there. In addition, you can create both local mirrors and remote mirrors as you see fit. The local mirrors can be synchronous or asynchronous, and then the remote mirrors are always asynchronous. And you can even do what we call a multi-zone high availability, which is a synchronous mirror to an adjacent building where there's automatic, seamless, and instant failover should the entire building fail. So we can actually protect you against the power going out in a building. So you shouldn't worry about SSD reliability, and you can put in as much redundancy as you want locally, remotely, and also at the drive-by-drive level. Next question is coming in. Great question about encryption. I didn't mention encryption, and we do support absolutely both at rest and in-flight encryption with a very, very important distinction and a unique feature. When the data is encrypted at rest, the key resides with you. We don't have it. Amazon doesn't have it. Microsoft Azure doesn't have it. Equinix doesn't have it. Only you have it, which means a number of things. It means that you don't have to trust us or anybody else along the chain like Amazon to keep your data secret because only you have the key. It also means that if you want to, let's say I mentioned it's an elastic service, so maybe you want to reduce your usage and give some drives back, you don't have to worry about what happens to those drives because you have the key. And in fact, if you destroy the key, it's the equivalent to destroying the drives. And also it means that you can decide to have different keys for different applications within your environment. So you may have different trust levels within your environment. Maybe there's the highest trust level goes with the legal department, but then less trust with marketing or sales. So you can have one key for legal and another key for marketing and sales. So again, total control. A theme that you should be hearing from me is that we designed this product for full control for you. You decide how much to protect the data, where to put the data, where to replicate or not replicate, how much to replicate, and the policies, and very, very granular. You decide where the data resides on a drive-by-drive level. You decide how to replicate on a volume-by-volume level. It's really completely at your control. All we do is make sure that the system remains up and running and performing at the highest levels. That brings me to the end of questions. I will take a moment to say thank you. I'm very grateful to my co-panelists, John Kim at Mellanox, Frank Berry at IT Brand Pulse. I also want to thank Haitui Nguyen for excellent logistics, arranging this webinar, making it all possible. And, oh, yes, please.
Hi, this is John. I didn't finish answering Matt's question about Windows. Let me just go and finish the answer. He asked if Windows would have support for ISER as part of Microsoft's own release or Mellanox's own driver. And the answer is both. Traditionally what happens, and the way that, for example, Windows supports Rocky and the SMB Direct file protocol today, is that first Mellanox comes out with an updated driver, and then Microsoft ISER support that you would download, and then later Microsoft would build it into the release. So, I just wanted to finish clarifying that, the answer to Matt's question there.
Excellent. And actually, there's another question that came in for you, John. What Mellanox HCA were these ISER results achieved with? And that may be HBA, I'm not sure. Or converged adapters. Sure.
So for the tests we used that I showed, we were using the Mellanox ConnectX-3 adapters. And unless that question was about what you're deploying in the Zadara storage, but I suspect it's the same adapters, either ConnectX-3 or ConnectX-3 Pro.
Yes, we have certified the ConnectX-3 and ConnectX-3 Pro. We both recommend the ConnectX-3 Pro for the application server side, what we call the endpoint side. And yes, we ship inside our own storage nodes the ConnectX-3 Pro.
Great. Thank you, Noam.
Well, good. If there are no further questions, I want to say thank you also to our audience. You've been very attentive. The questions just fantastic, right on. It seems, and I hope that you found this interesting. Please have a wonderful day or evening, depending where you are. And please feel free to contact any of us. You can see our contact information on the slide should you have additional questions or requests. Thank you.
Hi there, this is Haitui. I just wanted to jump in and thank all of our panelists today. Thank you so much for presenting this with an extremely insightful conversation that we had on ISER. And thank you again to all of our participants who have joined us today. And with that, we'll end today's session. And thank you again for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.